right, so welcome to our talk about fun. I know this is the last talk of the day, so you guys are probably tired. It's going to be a very short and sweet talk about a very broad and deep subject. I am Joe Morris. I am a 20-year game development veteran. I worked on projects for Walt Disney Imagineering. I designed a board game with Nolan Bushnell. I'm kind of the Forrest Gump of the entertainment industry, where I've been in weird places. I was one of the first 10 people to work on League of Legends at Riot Games. And I've worked on all kinds of like crazy experiences, but basically I've sort of I got to work on enough things where I found like a universal formula for what makes something fun. And Ariel, would you like to introduce yourself?
So I'm Ariel Giacobbe. I'm a narrative designer, and I started out in working in traditional media and print, and then moved over to XR, VR, and gaming. So I've kind of seen everything from established companies to startups, every version of what people think when they know something's fun to what actually is fun and everything in between.
Yeah. No big deal. So a few things that you might be wondering. So why does fun matter in XR? Why does fun matter in innovation? And how does fun affect your bottom line? To keep it short, when your project or your product is engaging and it resonates with users on a very deep level, they're going to be retained for a lot longer. They're going to be attracted to, they're going to want to do it, and they're going to stay in it longer. And I think that's kind of the goal of what you're doing is you spent so much time and energy and money getting this technology and learning it and being on the cutting edge. You know, figuring out what makes it resonate and what makes it fun is almost, it's a detriment to you if you don't know that, if you don't know how to make this engaging and fun and have them come back for more.
And if they have fun, they're going to spend money. So they're not going to be like, I'm so miserable, I hated that. All right, I'm going to do it again. So it really does affect the bottom line a lot.
Yeah, and the interesting thing is that it's people are wired the same way. So the same things resonate with people no matter what the technology or the platform or whatever, or time period even. We're all wired the same way. So it behooves you to understand how people are wired, and despite the technology or platform or whatever, even if your genre isn't even invented, you're inventing it right now. You're coming up with a brand new audience for a brand new platform. The things that make something fun never change, and so that's why it was so important for us to talk about and discover what makes something fun, so you can apply it to whatever you're doing right now. All right, so we are going to. These are the 5 steps to make it fun. So if you take one picture, this should be it, because this is it in a nutshell. So there are 5 things that make something fun. And this is derived from about 14 years of research across things. I also used to be a pro wrestler and a stuntman, and did stage improv. So these are things that I've found throughout platforms and genres that are in this order. These are the things that make something fun.
Yeah, so whatever your technology is, this transcends and will fit, even if it's not invented yet.
Yeah, and so here are the 5 steps. Step 1 is safety. So, Ariel, have you ever had fun while you were scared?
When I've been afraid to be physically or mentally hurt, that is when the fun stops being fun. And that's something we see, that's for everything. It's not just for your audience, this is for the creators too. You're not gonna get the best version of anybody if they're not having fun and they're not feeling safe. And if they feel like, I can't speak up, I don't have a voice, no one's going to hear it, or something physically is going to happen to me, something really bad, and I could hurt myself. And once that's there, they can't get into a space of having fun because that concern is at the forefront of their mind.
Right, and safety is not only like a physical safety, it's also a psychological safety. So if you are making a product or a joke about something that I'm sensitive about, that sense of safety is gone. So if I love Walt Disney, so if you start making fun of Walt Disney, I don't care how funny that joke is, I'm probably not gonna laugh because I'm very I'm very sensitive to that subject. I really love Walt Disney and his career. So safety is not just physical, it's also psychological. So depending on your audience, you're gonna have to go one way or the other. But the first step is psychological safety. Does the user feel safe in what they're doing? Especially if you're doing VR or XR. I've done some walk around VR experiences, and people sometimes don't feel safe walking with the headset on. So you have to double down on that message that this is a safe thing to do. So that's just one example.
And people know when technology is not safe, like it catches fire, we all know. So you're less likely to get people buying your product.
Exactly, yeah, if your phone blows up. Okay, so once you have that figured out, the second step is set expectations.
Okay, so have you ever been invested when you didn't understand what was going on?
That has never happened to me. So set expectations is important because partially what makes something a very satisfying and fun experience is when you go over someone's expectations. So if you don't set them to begin with, you can't go over it. It's almost like you're setting yourself up for failure if you don't set up their expectations correctly.
And when they know what to do, they know how to have fun. So if you're transitioning between different technologies, if they're having to watch something and then they have to do something, and there's that moment of confusion, they don't know that, then they're not prepared and excited for that to happen. And they're like, oh, I didn't know I was supposed to do that. I didn't know what was going on. And when they're more engaged, when they're like, okay, I'm ready for this, I'm ready for this. And you can still surprise them without them feeling like I'm confused and I'm out of this now.
Yeah, and you might see it a lot when you're doing new products in AR, VR, XR, whatever, is that the first friction point that users usually come to is the UX. They don't know where to go, it's not intuitive enough, and that's part of setting those expectations. The least you can do in this step is at least make everything clear. Like they know the relationships of the characters, or they know what they should be doing next. The best part is you resonate with them. You touch them on a deeper level where they actually, you could touch on their emotions on what their interests are. That's why it's really easy to use IP, because people have pre-existing relationships with IP and stuff like that. But that's what this step is about. So people, you've cleared psychological safety. People know what to expect, and they have a clear understanding of what this product is. The next step.
Engage.
Yeah.
Very, very important.
So Ariel, have you ever laughed at a joke you weren't paying attention to?
No, unless it was a pity laugh. So if people are engaged, and most importantly, stay engaged the whole time, you've lost them. Obviously, it's in the word engage. But engage can be a lot of different things, and a lot of it is inviting them in with you. And when they feel like they're a part of it and they feel welcome and they're able to maintain that focus, if you throw 10 different things at them at once and they don't know what to focus on, you've lost that engagement, because everyone is all over the place and trying to figure out what's going on, and then you hit that confusion again. Instead of saying, oh, okay, I do this, and then I do this, and I'm maintaining what you've set out as the creator for the whole time and it also allows you to play on those emotions when you know, oh, okay, here's what they're feeling here, here's what they're feeling there, because that's where they have their memory too. They're remembering the emotions they felt. They're not remembering something behind the scenes. They're remembering what they felt about that thing.
Yeah, and the thing that you might notice here is that fun is a process, and we're going through the process right now. And in what the role of engagement is, it keeps your audience's attention until you get to the punchline, or until you get to that moment of discovery, which I just spoiled what fun was. And so engagement can last 10 seconds, it could be 2 hours, but basically you're just doing things to keep the focus of the user. And again, like Ariel said, and a quote by Mr. Joe Morris on the thing there, is the audience can only focus on one thing at a time. And you'd be surprised how many times in new technology we're asking the users to look at 2 different screens, or look at something real and then overlaid on it that's a different image not related to it. And that never works out well. You always want to focus, always know that the user can only focus on one thing at a time, because you have the potential to lose engagement. And what a lot of game designers say is the best way to keep engagement is to never lose it at all. So never give the user a chance to lose engagement. So you've established psychological safety. The user now understands what this product is or what it's about, and now they care, they're engaged. Next step.
Now it's create tension.
All right.
I'm going to stare at you for a minute. No. So have you ever cared for something more than when it was at risk of being lost?
Yeah, no, I had a fight with my fiance this morning. I really cared about that argument. So tension is if you're looking for dopamine fun for that sort of like movie, video game, high, really fun moment, tension is absolutely needed. It's a necessary step. Because when you have tension, one, that means that the user cares. Two, it means that because the user is so focused on what you're doing, they're forgetting about their problems. We're not thinking about the mess we have in our driveway. We're not thinking about homework. We're not thinking about problems at work. We're in this moment. We're in the moment that the designer created. And that's what lends itself so well to fun.
Yeah, and that comes from having an emotional up and down and difference. If someone is platformed and they're only feeling one thing, one emotion, they're never going to be like, oh, now I feel this, now I feel tense. And if they don't care, they can't be like, oh, I care about what's going to happen to this person, this character, this moment, because they're not paying attention. They have no investment at all. And when they've been able to emotionally invest in this and say, oh, like what's going to happen next, you've got them. And that's when you have to really deliver on that too. You can't just be like, well, I guess going to do nothing with that.
Yeah, and there's a very specific way you deliver on that, which we'll get into on the next step. But I got to interview Disney Imagineer Tony Baxter, who did Indiana Jones Adventure, Star Tours, like all the big hits of Disney. And he said one key to designing a effective Disney ride is you bring the audience right to the edge of death and then you take them out of it. And that's essentially tension, is you create that tension and then you release it for them. And so there's a lot of different ways to do it in different mediums, like pro wrestling, video games, movies. But this is a part of no matter what you're doing, even the new thing that you're doing right now that you're probably inventing, this is a part of it. All right, our last step.
Discovery.
All right, Ariel, have you ever had fun because you were told to?
And this is a joke we share. If anyone tells us to do anything, we're less likely to do it.
Exactly.
It's all tied to learning, and if you learn on your own or you find something on your own, you're more likely to remember it than if someone tells you something that you had nothing to do with, you have no connection with, and you have no idea even what the context was. But when you find it for yourself and you feel your audience feels smart and they feel like, oh, wow, like I can't believe I did that. I felt like that, because it's become really personal to them.
Exactly, and that's what makes a good discovery moment, is you let the audience discover it for themselves. And this is why old Nintendo games were more fun in general, because they let you figure out walk right. They let you figure out to jump. In a lot of newer games, they tell you to walk right and they tell you to jump. And so they kind of ruin that discovery for you. It's also why people don't like spoilers in movies, because the point, you're making a whole movie to build up to these discovery moments. And so when you say, the kid, Bruce Willis is dead at the end of Sixth Sense.
Spoiler.
Yeah, like it's like, oh, well, you ruined that moment for me, and now I can't make that profound discovery on my own. I've lost the ability to learn.
And there's no emotional connection there anymore, and you're not going along with the user on their experience. You're riding with them on that because you've already told them things instead of showing them things. And these are all tied together too, because the moment you tell someone how to feel about something rather than feeling it for themselves, you've again lost them, and there's no discovery on, oh, how do I feel about that? And you're letting people feel the way they're going to feel, which is really important, because not everyone's going to feel the same way about something. And the moment you say, oh, you should have felt this, you're going again to not connect with them, because that's not how they felt about it. And that's really, really hard to come back from that.
Yeah, and those are also the moments that people remember the most. is because, again, like you said, they feel smart. You're letting them you're letting them discover it for themselves. And there's a really great quote from Aristotle on here where he says, a good ending is both shocking and inevitable. That's because it takes the user by surprise because they're preceded by tension, and tension has an unknown element to it. But it's inevitable because, yes, this is how the world works. And the reason why you want discovery and not surprise is because you can surprise the user with anything at any time, and you'll catch them off guard for a second. You could have Luke throw away the lightsaber in episode 8, and it's like, okay, you surprised me. But discovery means this is how the world works. There's a deeper look at this world. Like when Darth Vader said, you're my father. You didn't know he wasn't his father, and it's possible, and obviously it's true. But it's like, oh, that makes sense, and that's why he's so connected to him, stuff like that. So,
because if it's also, that's where it being true is really important, but not just true to it doesn't have to be true to our world either. If it's a different world, it could be true to the world you created, the worlds of the laws of that world, the mechanics of that world, and if it feels right, and also for character, if it feels right for that character, they would do that. You don't know that they were going to do that, but you know them so well, and you know yourself as a user too, which makes it harder and interactive sometimes because obviously we can't say, you would do this as a user, but if they feel like, in this situation, and then you give them the tools to do that themselves, then they're like, oh yes, I would do this, and they believe it, and they know, they're like, oh yeah, this is exactly what would happen, even though I never saw this coming, and I feel really good about it.
And by the way, my views on Star Wars are not reflected by Ariel. Ariel, it's a different opinion on that, so I don't want to get Ariel in trouble. Okay, so that's discovery. So why does it matter? Why is it important to understand what makes something fun at a universal level? So as we sort of established at the beginning, if you know how to make something fun, even if you're building something new for new technology with a new audience on a new genre that you guys are probably all doing right now, it's going to apply to that. The reason why it's important is most of the stuff, if you guys are working on the bleeding edge, like I know some of you guys are, you might not have a precedent to work off of. You might say, like, I'm doing this crazy AR, ninja, whatever experience. This is the first one of its kind. How do I make this good if I'm doing the first one? And so if you understand what makes something fun from a universal level, you don't need a precedent because the steps are the same no matter what. No matter what genre or type of entertainment it is, every user goes through these same steps.
And we see this a lot with our work. We have a lot of companies and stuff that say, there's no precedent at all. No one has done anything. There's no connection. I can't look at anything. There's nothing. But human emotions are all the same, and that's what you're connecting to, so you can look at that. And also, when you have fun as a creator, then your audience is going to have fun, and they're going to feel that. And they're gonna really connect with that if they can feel your fun. And you don't have to say, I don't know anything about this audience. I don't know anything about. There is stuff that is connecting on multiple different versions of what you're doing, and you can look at that and say, okay, like what was missing? Because I'm doing something different, there's going to be something that this audience wasn't getting that they want. And you can play on like 10 different audiences instead of just one and give them all what they want from these different, that makes them have fun in it in a different way, because everyone has fun in a different way. But still, at the baseline, they need these things to have fun.
Yeah, and part of, just really quick on that, a quick aside, is that the reason why fun is different for everyone is because something resonates differently for other people than it does for someone else. Either way, you still have the same steps, no matter what, after you resonate.
And we've had companies say too, like, they'll care about how cool the technology is behind the scenes. We're like, yeah, they will, but first they have to have fun. First they have to engage, and it has to resonate. Not many people just talk about these successes that just did that. They also talk about, I could pick what color that was. They talk about they got to go do this cool thing. So once they've had fun, then you can be like, by the way, this is how we made it. But it's very hard besides the tech crowd to get just an everyday user in that has no reason to be engaged.
Yeah, and actually George Lucas, when he made the first Star Wars, he said that you can't just rely on technology alone. If the users didn't care about the characters in the story, the technology wouldn't matter. I'm paraphrasing. But he said something to that level. And it's true, is that the tech is cool, and you guys have done a lot of hard work to get to the places you are, to be on the bleeding edge. But if the casual, Joe and Jane viewer, if you don't have a character or story or some kind of a hook that resonates with them, it honestly doesn't matter. And so another reason why it's important to understand what makes something fun from a universal level is that once you sort of get that these are universal steps that every person has wired into them, you can be more authentic to how you're developing something, or how you're creating something. Because if you, like the first person to do a dancing video game, there was no precedent for it. And so instead they went and they did Proper the Rapper or whatever the game was, because they knew that, well, the characters are good, the story is good, the music is fun. So they knew that it was going to be a fun experience, even though there's no precedent. And so the good thing about this is this allows you to be more authentic when you're expressing yourself. And the more authentic you are as a creator, as a creative, the more fun the audience is gonna have, because the ultimate fun is discovering how you think as a creator, how Stanley Kubrick thinks, how George Lucas thinks, really discovering what's deep in their mind and how they put it out there and how they express themselves. That's the ultimate fun for a user.
And because it's coming from this authentic, true place of caring and fun from you as a creator, and when that's been established on the team, in the entire company, you can feel that as the user. And you don't have to pivot if someone else does something similar, because your thing is so unique to the way you think, the way you feel, what you've created, and it's so sincere. And that sincerity is what they're going to see. They're not just going to say, oh, no one else has ever done this in the world, and that's all that matters. If it's not sincere, then no one cares that you're the first person to do it.
Yeah, exactly. And also, this is also where you get the biggest hits. This is where you get those Pac-Mans. This is where you get this Atari. This is where you get Angry Birds and Among Us. It's people who, the first time you see something, the first time you see like something cool and that there's no precedent for, that's when you get those biggest hits that define a whole genre. And that mostly comes from a very true, authentic expression from a creator. Like the guy who created, I forgot his name, Pokemon, he was into bug collecting. He knew what made bug collecting fun. And so when he had the chance to do it, he really did Pokemon well. You couldn't get any game designer to do that. It was an authentic expression of himself. All right, so that's our talk. I'm also surprised by the slide. You can find us at harbingerfun.com. We work on all kinds of fun projects. We're available for consulting. We're making a cool VR haunted walkthrough, speaking of unprecedented. You can visit us at thousandbit.com. Anything else to add, Ariel?
We hope you had fun at the conference.
Any Q&A?
Oh, yeah, we could take a couple of questions.
Yeah. I love that. The stage is all yours after. Also, does anyone have any questions? Not too many hands. Calm down.
Great talk. I think one interesting point is you mentioned safety as your #1 concern, and then you are making a horror game. So I'm very interested in your thoughts on that.
Yeah, so for safety, so if you decided to go to a haunted house and the chainsaw was real and you could die, you would not go to that haunted house. You might. You'd have a couple people just show up just to see. But it's about, and also psychological safety in that too. Are you going to be so traumatized, and not fun traumatized, where you're like, wow, like I can sleep kind of well for a week, but probably not. But it's, you know that you're safe. You know that no one's saying things that are really going to hit you in a way that's like, oh, you shouldn't be here because of how you look, how you talk. things like that, that suddenly it's like, oh, I'm not safe. I'm not safe here. But people, they want to experience things and interact in a way that's really fun and engaging, and they know, and that's set expectations too. They know they want to be scared, then they're in it. They're like, yeah, I came for this, but I don't want to be scared in a way that really hurts me, and then I'm actually damaged.
Yeah. Setting expectations are really important for that. So they are complicit in the horror experience. But also, because tension is so important to fun, you could see why horror is such a big genre, because it's loaded with tension. There's clear stakes involved. There's gross things. There's all kinds of things that resonate with different people, spiders and all kinds of crazy stuff.
And you've welcomed them into that. You've said, okay, here, you're not going to get hurt, but you're going to get to feel those emotions that you want to feel, those heightened emotions, without that actual danger aspect. You
learn all the things about this scary world in a safe way. Yeah. That's basically. But if you didn't tell someone this house was haunted and you took them there, that's different.
Yeah, like the time my grandpa almost punched somebody because he didn't know zombie wasn't gonna come at him. He didn't have fun.
Yeah, exactly. So there's a lot of subtleties in how to do this, but the steps are the same. Any other questions?
We have one lined up.
Sure. So definitely a fun talk, but and kind of related to the haunted house, which is also, you go to this for fun, but a lot of the applications here are for serious applications, like training for dangerous things, firefighting or what. How would you recommend applying these techniques to things that are actually serious and perhaps life-threatening or preventing dangerous outcomes?
Oh, so creating about health games and things like that, or okay.
It's funny that you also mentioned firefighting in specific, because firefighters have a lot of fun. They have a lot of fun. That's how they separate, that, oh my God, people are dying around me all the time. I'm just completely, because they can bring that up and down emotion. And when you invite them into that and say, oh, we know that you can also enjoy doing this. They're not like, I hate fire so much, I never want to see it again in my life, because that's then a trauma. They want to put it out. They want to come and deal with this and understand it and learn about it. There's curiosity.
Yeah, and there's it behooves them because it's their job. And so they need to learn to work under pressure, and they need to normalize that type of situation. And what you're describing is known as serious games, which is you're teaching a very serious, possibly life-threatening skill in the context of a video game. And so that's when that first step becomes super important, is you have to reassure that this is a safe thing for you to do. Because then the user needs to buy this as realistic, because they need to learn these skills, because when they encounter this in the real world, there's going to be much more serious stakes. And so you really have to double down on that safety point, because then you can go in and add the more detailed nuances that are going to make this possibly a scary experience, so they can become normalized to that experience and learn how to operate in it.
And when they've learned in a safe environment, a lot of people, and we've seen this from working and learning in XR, people will ask questions when they know it's safe. They will do things when they know it's safe that they would not do in real life, even if it's talking to a virtual human, if it's doing something in a space that they could get in physical danger. They're going to try new things. They're going to experiment. They're not going to be afraid of just being shut down. And they're going to buy into it even more, weirdly, than if it was a real life interaction, because they know they are safe.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay, for one more. How are you guys feeling?
Sure.
Okay. Any more?
As long as nobody has to go home.
Okay.
Cool.
Well, thank you guys very much. We really
Thank
appreciate
you.
you
Thank you.
time here.